Hi, my friends. Welcome to the Grow There with Cheria podcast. Welcome to the first official episode of Grow There with Cheria. I am so excited that you have decided to take a moment to poke your head in here and see what this is all about. And I really hope that there is something for you. In fact, I know that there is if you keep listening because today's guest is amazing. But before I jump in there, this is really a podcast for people just like me who are doing their best to bravely toddler their way through this life and keep growing from here to there. And, one of the things that I found is that some of our most incredible growth happens at this intersection between work and life. And I actually think that's a far more interesting conversation about work life balance than the one we typically have. And so that's what this podcast is about. And my guests are coming on from all different careers, all different walks of life, but with this common theme of growth that's come at these moments when those two parts intersected. So, as I was thinking about today's episode, I thought about this book that I'm going through right now called The Artist's Way. If you haven't heard about it, it is iconic, written by Julia Cameron, and it's about reclaiming your inner artist. And one of the first things she invites you to do is to look at the people in your life who discouraged or hurt your inner artist in some way, whether intentional or not intentional, and the people who did the opposite of that, really saw you, uplifted you, and made you feel empowered as an artist. And there's a time in my life when I was confronted with those two archetypes at the same time. I was in junior high and I was new to this community. And the thing you should know about me is I started singing professionally when I was 8 years old. And by the time I got to junior high, and this particular school had allegedly a really great music program, I'd been literally in the game of music for a while. But I had this teacher, and let's call him Mr. D, and he just didn't seem to like me. And I was a pretty good kid, so I don't I really don't think it was that. But he just didn't like me, and as a result, never gave me any attention or any solos. So our first big concert, I was disappointed and shocked when I found out I didn't get a solo because I was a pretty good singer. I'm not saying that I was the only good singer, but I was one of the best, and that was probably objective. Everyone knew it, but he didn't give me a solo. My mom was upset about that. My mom thought he was probably racist, and maybe she was right. Who knows? I think to protect myself, I just thought the guy doesn't like me, and it is what it is. But then flash forward, we have a school talent show, and let's call my vice principal Mr. W. He is the one responsible for the auditions, and he heard my voice and he said, "I can't believe that you're not in music ensemble and that this is the first time I'm hearing your voice." And I said, "I am in music ensemble." And he said, "Then why haven't you gotten a solo?" And I said, "I don't know." And so he marched on over to Mr. D and basically said, "What's the deal?" Next thing I knew, not only was I singing in the talent show, but I also had a solo in our spring concert. And then my peers voted me best music ensemble. And it was kind of this strange story of feeling hidden and not seen to be handed a microphone and being empowered. And the reason why I'm thinking about this story is because our guest today is one of those people who showed up in my life as a Mr. W, who has seen me and who has literally handed me a microphone. And I'm so grateful for you to get to meet him today. So I'm ready to brag about him. And I'm so glad I'm doing this bumper without him because he would die if he heard all the things that I'm sharing about him. He's just not that type, but I'm going to tell you anyway. He is an Emmy and Peabody award-winning marketer and business leader. He's the president of Known, which is a marketing firm that Ad Age ranked number 3 on their A list. That's number 3 worldwide. He is the founder of a venture capital fund called Lunch Partners, and that's an early stage private investment vehicle for some of the world's most inspiring CMOs. He's an executive producer of Genius, a Kanye trilogy, which was so good, and the 5-part docuseries Countdown, inspiration for Mission to Space, which was also amazing and close to my heart. Both of those are for Netflix. He's also working on a really amazing project I can't wait to come out called Meal Ticket, which is an upcoming documentary about the McDonald's All-American Games. Do you remember the McDonald's All-American Games? You're about to remember. That's gonna be Amazon Prime Video. And Deep Dive, which is a new series with Universal Music Group and Time Magazine. On top of all of that, he's also an executive producer and co-host of the popular iHeartMedia podcast called Future Legends of Advertising. And he serves on multiple boards, including the Digital Innovation and Advisory Council at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, which is where we met. And there is a reason why he was listed as one of Adweek's 50 most indispensable executives in advertising and as Fast Company's 100 most creative people in business, and that he was inducted into the Advertising Hall of Achievement. It's because he is one of a kind, one of the most brilliant minds of our time. I truly believe that. So, without further ado, it is time to grow there with my dear friend, Ross Martin. Ross Martin. I don't even know what to do. I feel like I'm gonna explode. I'm so happy to see you. How are you?
I mean, how could I be better? I'm on your podcast. I wanted to be on your podcast badly, and thank you for finally letting me be on your podcast.
Well, that you're saying all the words, but not the right ones because the truth it's finally letting you be on this podcast. You are the first person that if I ever started a podcast, you were going to be on it. I would
A
force
lot of
you into
pressure.
doing
It's
it.
a lot of pressure. Like, thing is, I like this is going to be a really good podcast. After my episode, it's going to get way better.
Stop.
Um, so I'm willing to be your guinea pig and mess it all up, and then hopefully people
No.
do give it a second chance because whatever the next episode is, let me tell you, people, it's going to be really good. The next episode's
Oh
going to
my
be great.
god. Oh my god. It just couldn't be further from the truth. You're one of my favorite people on the planet, and I feel so lucky that the universe allowed us to collide in this lifetime. And, I think you know why we're here, but for everyone else listening, I'm just gonna quickly say that, there's 2 reasons why I wanted to do this podcast. One is I'm obsessed with growth, and honestly, I think we both are. I think there's just kind of this constant wanting to grow and evolve and and live into the best version of ourselves, the favorite version of ourselves, all of that in order to make this world a better place, and also to just live life to the fullest. But the second reason is because in my growth journey, I've found that some of the most powerful moments of personal growth have actually happened when work and life have intersected. And right. And it's not just about sometimes it's something that happens personally that impacts you professionally or vice versa. Sometimes it's just all of life colliding and happening at once. But it kind of gives you this growth spurt that you sometimes didn't expect, didn't want to see happen, but it does that. And so today I'm asking you to tell me a story, which you're a wonderful storyteller. I know I'm like gassing you up before you have to do this. You're probably starting to sweat because I'm
You're
making
not
you.
teaching your audience is what you're doing. They're like, enough
I
of
really am.
this jabroni. Like, you just cut to it.
But I'm asking you to tell me a story about a time in your life when work and life intersected and where maybe something in your personal life really impacted your professional life or vice versa. And then we're going to talk about it. So, without further ado, lay it on me. Tell me the story.
Well, I think that there are two real big inflection points in my life and in my career where work and life come together. I mean, how can you even
Mhm.
separate them more given
I
at
know.
least what I do? Like, and the way the world works today. Um, and there were two real seminal moments for me where, I guess I guess it feels like things happened to me that, I was able to grow from and learn from, and, that benefited me both in my regular, normal, everyday life and my work life. And that's why I love this podcast so much, is because it's the collision of the two. And what happens to you when something, um, occurs in your work or personal life that just sort of changes the way that you think and the way that you experience the world, and then maybe even more importantly, the way that people experience you.
Yeah.
So I think the first I would talk about is 2007, 2008. I was diagnosed. I was the 167th person in the United States diagnosed with something called superior semicircular canal dehiscence. And what that means is that there were holes, that like degeneration of the lining between my brain and my inner ear. And so
Mm.
sounds that shouldn't be able to permeate my brain, and reach my brain were doing so, especially certain frequencies. And so when that happens, your brain can't actually handle those sound waves, and certain frequencies would cause me to pass out. So
Wow.
you're just sitting there at your kid's birthday party and you're drinking your coffee, and all of a sudden you're on the ground having crashed into some people, and like it looks like there's something wrong with you. Like, are you drunk? Are you on
Yeah.
drugs? Are you
Yeah.
have epilepsy? Like, did you have a stroke? What happened? Um, and nobody could figure it out. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse, to the point where I suffered from what's called autophony, which is the
Mm.
sound of your own voice is too loud in your head. So you shut down and you stop talking. And
Wow.
ultimately, I got really, really lucky and became the 65th person in America to have a surgery to correct this. A lot
Mm.
happened between not knowing what was going on and being cured. A lot happened in that, time and space for me personally that we don't have time for on a podcast. But I will share with you that what I realized is that both in my work life and in my home life, um, I wasn't maybe using my ears the right way. I wasn't listening in the
Mm.
right way. Um, it taught me, I guess, metaphorically, but really, that the sound of my voice was too loud in my own head. Like, really.
That's so powerful.
And the newer language I have for this is that if I was listening, I was listening to respond or react. I wasn't listening to
Mm.
understand. I wasn't listening to understand.
Mm.
And I think part of that comes from a background in poetry and creative writing. Part of it comes from a background in music as a drummer for my whole life. You are listening to respond. You are trying to create art, out of what's around you. And so
Yeah.
that's where I come from as a person. But in business and in life, I've learned how much more important it is to listen to understand than it is to listen to
Mm.
respond. And I had no choice but to stop talking so much and just start listening for real.
Wow.
And my my dialogue, my internal dialogue changed, and my behavior changed both at home and at work. And I think people started to see a very different kind of leader.
Yeah. I mean, so how long was that period of time?
It took me over a year before I had a diagnosis.
Yeah.
Very chaotic year. Um,
Yeah.
and and then about 8 months after that. So about a little over a year and a half between really starting to have a problem and being able to get it solved. And I hid that, from any
Mm.
hide it from. I think only a few people in my life knew that this was even really happening, because
Yeah.
it's so confusing when you have a medical condition and you don't really want to share it with someone you don't know. You don't really know what is happening to you. And I shut
Mm.
down. But I've always had a career that put me in the spotlight, both internally and externally, wherever I've worked. I've usually
Yeah.
been in a camera or on stage with a mic in my hand, or
Yeah.
directing teams, large teams, global
Mhm.
teams. And so there's only so much you can pretend when that's happening. And I think like many others, I developed the coping mechanisms to make it look like nothing was going on at all.
Mm,
Just to protect myself, to protect my job, to make sure
yeah.
that people didn't write me off or I didn't lose my job because I couldn't really listen anymore, couldn't really hear without passing out.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's interesting because it's so much of the symbolism of this feels so potent to your whole life journey, you know? And it makes me wonder, had you not gone through this, who would you be today if you hadn't gone through this?
That's scary.
Mm,
I mean, I look at the people in life and at work that I admire the most, and these are the people who are the great listeners, who, um, create space for others, who know
mm,
that the best idea is probably not coming from them.
mm,
Um, that maybe their job as a leader is not to always have the answer, but to create the right climate and context for the best ideas to emerge. And I
mm,
don't think I wouldn't be, and clearly I don't have that down yet. I'm working on it, but I would be nowhere near where I am today as a leader. I would have been a one-dimensional leader who continued to think I was the smartest person in the room and the most creative, and who continued to believe that, like, the solution would come from me and that everyone just needed to listen to me, right? And
yeah.
that's really immature. Um, that's a very unevolved way of living your life and of working. And
Mm,
I'm just not like that anymore, thank God, because and then when I see it in others, right, um, it's something I try to, not fix, but I try to share my experience and sort of open them up a little bit to the possibility that there's a different way to lead and there's a different way to be than to
yeah.
show up every day as the one who has all the answers and is always right.
Well, it's so tempting for someone like you because you're absolutely brilliant, and it makes me what makes me so grateful that you've had this experience is because what I think this did in some way is allow for you to be even more of a propagator of your creativity because now it's become more inclusive. It's not just about your own voice. And I think that's an area I can say in my own life. Later in this conversation, I'm going to talk more about how much you've meant to me. But in my life, I think about the way that you have seen me and amplified my voice. And I wonder if you would have come alongside me the way that you did had you not had this type of experience that taught you there's a time for you to listen versus just propagate what you feel like you wanna say, but instead to actually bring others up and see others and hear others and listen to your point for understanding and see all that there's so much more potential to be cultivated when you're not just doing it within yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally, totally. There's a new way I've been thinking about, um, the leaders that I admire the most, which is that, it's not really about whether they can be the most intelligent or creative or w w talented, but it's how consequential they can be. And
Mm,
I don't know why we as human beings, like, wish to be consequential, or a lot of us do. I do. I'm trying to
mhm.
figure out what I mean by that, but, like, I want to have lived a life that meant something, and
Yeah.
it's hard. How do you measure that? Um, so I know I think I learned from this experience in particular that to have the kind of positive impact I wanna have on the world, um, on my children and my family, on the people I care about, on the industries that I work in, that there's just no way that the old design of that in my head was gonna work. And here's how
Yeah.
I mean. Yeah. Like, I I came up in this industry in very competitive companies and industries that teach you, just through the way they model leadership and behavior, that, like, success is kind of like a triangle or like a pyramid, and you wanna get to the top. And there's only one person up there at the top, and that's power. And
Mm.
you're taught early on, well, I want to be that man or woman at the very top of this organization or this industry. And um, I don't know where it happens for people, but at some age you realize, what the fuck does that mean? Like, what am I actually
Mhm.
climbing to the top of what? And how
Yeah.
would you even, if you got there, right? Like,
Yeah.
I look at what I've achieved and I don't even think I'm halfway towards anything
Mhm.
that I'm trying. I'm nowhere yet. And,
Mhm.
there was a there was a real pivotal moment for me in my journey through this condition where that pyramid was inverted, and I
Mm.
realized actually the network effect I could have if I could
Yeah.
be the right kind of inspirational leader.
Mm.
If I could find people who I believe are lights in this universe who contain multitude like you and go,
Mm.
"Oh, I see Sharia, like, I see it." The minute I met you, I saw it. I'm like, "Oh,
Mm.
there is magic in this person." And I
Mm.
know I not only see that, but I believe in it enough that I want to invest in it. I have no
Mm.
idea where that's gonna take her or me. I don't know that I'm doing this, for any kind of return on my investment because I don't really know what I'm asking
Yeah.
you for, if anything. But I do know that I can have a more scaled and positive impact on the world and therefore be more consequential as a
Mm.
human life if I can help people like you who I see the brilliance in achieve what may be your destiny or
Mm.
manifest your magic in the real world. I would like to do that. And I changed as a leader when that
Yeah.
happened. And I began to see, I began to live a more um, abundant mindset. Like I began to be more grateful for the things that I have and the gifts that I've been given. I, I think I became much more of a learner and a better listener. And I also think that like I really started to think of myself as an investor
Mm.
in people and in ideas. And
Yeah.
wow, do I have like a pretty rich portfolio? Like
Yeah.
when you think when you think about your life that way, you realize quickly how wealthy you are. I
Oh,
have
yeah.
people I have people in my life who are doing extraordinary things, who I made a bet on in some
Mm.
cases a decade or 2 ago. And
Mm.
now I get to see that. I wake up every morning, and if I'm having a shitty day or feeling insecure about myself, I can look at people like you and go like, "Look at this. Look at Grow There as a
Mm.
business impact you're having for your clients." And I can be really proud of that. I don't
Huh.
go online and brag about it. I don't say like, "Well, I made a bet early. I was one of the first investors in the Series A of Sharia." Like, but damn, and I know
Mm.
that like
Yeah.
I saw that early on,
Yeah.
and that's a real like what a gift for both of us, right?
Oh, such a well, now I have to say so I was thinking about this. I was thinking about just how do I talk about you, about what you have meant to me, and I thought about this old movie, and I don't know, it's not well, it's probably like 25 years old. It was called Kate and Leopold. It was Hugh Jackman and Meg Ryan. A terrible rom-com, but probably amazing compared to today's rom-com. But it's it's about this guy who, like, finds a crack in time off the Brooklyn Bridge somehow, and he goes back in time and accidentally brings back his 19th century great-grandfather,
Oh,
and in the series of unfortunate events, he also ends up falling down an elevator shaft and going to the hospital, but no one knows where he is, and because he keeps telling people he's found a crack in time, they think he's a little nutty, so they institutionalize him, and he's trying to convince people, "No, I'm not nutty," and he has this one little, this sweet nurse who finally is listening to him,
am
and
I the
he
sweet nurse?
says,
Can I be the sweet
"Oh,
nurse?
no, no, I'm
Oh,
kidding, so"
I want
Well,
sorry, keep going.
actually, sweet nurse compare well, you'll see where this is going. It's actually funny now that I think about it. So this he tells this sweet nurse "Listen, I am nothing more than a dog who sees a rainbow." And she looks at him with this blank stare, and he's like, "Dogs can't see rainbows, Gretchen. They're colorblind." So now I realize I'm calling you a dog in this story, but
I'm
you
gone. Yeah.
you are the dog who sees the rainbow, and you've always been that way. You see the world, you see things that other people don't see. And that is so powerful in everything that you do, every body of work that you've ever been in. You've been such an asset because you can see what people can't see. But also, that's why people love to be seen by you because you also see in them what they can't often see in themselves. And I remember when we met and we were around each other for a couple years, like connecting, but not really connecting. And I always felt like you were observing me and not in some creepy way. It just
Yeah, that's
felt like,
le that seems lecherous. That's weird.
right.
No, I know
But
what you
I
mean.
felt,
It's
I
not you.
felt like,
It's you.
yeah,
Yeah.
you saw me. And then when, eventually you asked me to come and work for you, you said to me, "Right now, your job is amazing, but you're being hidden, and I want to give you a microphone." And to me, that was one of the most powerful things anyone could have said to me in that moment, because you saw me, and it wasn't just you saw me and wanted to, you know, have me come and work for you and do the things that you wanted me to do. No, you wanted to amplify my voice, and that was personal to me. And I see you doing that for people time and time again, and it's a magical thing. But I see you as the dog that sees the rainbow. And actually, this leads me to a question that we always talk about, the book that you're going to write one day,
Right.
and
Thank you.
because you must. And I wanna know what you would write about. Of all the things that you could write about as a dog who sees the rainbow, what would you write about?
First of all, I don't know how to write this book now without that being the title of the book. Um, A dog who sees a rainbow, but like or like it's gonna at least be a section or a chapter of the book now that you came up with
Love
that,
it.
and for the record, for history, you came up with that, and that's I didn't know where you were going, like,
Signed,
with
sealed,
Hugh Jack
delivered. You didn't know.
Hugh Jackman and Meg Ryan was in it?
Yeah.
That's so funny. That's funny. Yeah, my older son met, Meg Ryan once and called us afterwards. I met this, old lady, she was sort of I think she used to be an actress, and we were like, "You are calling Meg Ryan an old lady who used to be an actress? Like,
Wow.
she's
Oh,
the most important actress of my"
iconic. I mean, she
breaks everything.
owned
Yeah,
owned
Meg Ryan.
that space. Ugh, loved her,
Uh,
love her.
yeah, I don't even know who today's Meg Ryan would be.
There isn't
Um,
there isn't one. She was a sweetheart.
Look, I feel really blessed that there have been publishers and agents who asked me to write a book, and that's really cool. And I think that they're sort of they've asked, me to tell some of the stories that I've lived, mostly like work related, the things I've done in business, which I think can be really useful to the next generations of people who are going to do it way better than me. And I
Yeah.
like that. And I struggled for a while, because like, how do you, again, back to wanting to be consequential, like, how do you put something out in the world that anybody's going to give a shit about and more importantly, can use? And
Yeah.
I struggled with that for years. And, also like the realities of my business life have prevented me from having well, I haven't made the commitment that's required, even though a lot
Yeah.
of this book is already written. Um, so I realized through a conversation with a great friend of mine who's a Broadway composer, who just won his second Tony Award. We were just having a discussion about the tropes of theater and like all the tools you have at your disposal to tell stories and how you use those tools. And in that conversation, I realized something very powerful, which was one of the other major inflection points when it comes to self reflection and understanding like who I am and where I'm going with this life. And it was the language and the understanding that my whole life I have used um, things. We'll get into what I mean by that in a minute. I've used things in ways that they were not intended to be used. Like
Mm,
I've used tools and companies and jobs and relationships. I've leveraged them in ways that they weren't designed for. And most of that early on was super unintentional.
mm,
And I think I realized that that's something I do in business years ago, but just didn't really have the language for it and wasn't really
yeah.
embracing that as like as an identity. It's a
Mm,
little embarrassing actually, to be honest with you, because like I'm super intimidated by like craftsmanship and anything that requires like manual, like physical skills. Like my wife jokes with me all the time, like the last person you want changing a light bulb or like hanging a painting in your house is me. Like I will find a way to fuck that up because I just don't use the hammer the right way and I don't use the nails the right way. And you
I'm
like
actually shocked by this.
it's pretty damn simple. Like you just take the hammer and the nail and you just do it. And it's like I will find a way to fuck that up every time. And 'cause I misunderstand the directions or I, like,
Mm,
imagine there's other different way to get this done, and then I try
oh,
that,
yeah.
and it's like like, I have failed over and over and over again by using shit the wrong way, but also
Mm,
the greatest successes I've ever been part of have also been by using things in ways they were not intended to be used, and so,
yeah.
conversation with this, a friend of mine, that became, like, really clear that that actually is the way that I can understand myself and what I've been doing all along, and other people kinda see me that way sometimes too. And it speaks to what you said earlier, which I think is like, I'm really grateful you said those things about my relationship with you. I didn't see you in the way that you saw yourself yet, or I didn't see you in the way that others around you were seeing you. I saw you a little bit differently. And,
Mhm,
I was like, "Wait, like, this person's impact on the world could come out in different ways than they're currently letting it or
yeah,
pushing it." And
yeah,
that's what I mean by like you as a person, but like channeling the energy of Cheria, which
yeah.
I now see you doing with other business leaders and other companies that you work for. And also even this podcast itself. I think you're using this podcast in a way that nobody's really thought about using a podcast before. And I mean that in lots of ways. Like, first of all, the topic is totally unique and right on, like dead on for what kind of people I think need right now. But also like
Mm,
this podcast isn't just listened to, I think it's useful. I think people will use
mm,
these episodes, and they will have a real impact in both the personal and professional lives of anybody who's listening to it. That's why I wanted
mm,
to come on, because I think you're using a podcast for that in a slightly different way than other people have. And I've been on a million podcasts, but
mm,
this is the one I wanted to do because I felt like, oh, people could use these episodes.
mm. Oh, thanks for saying that, Ross. Thank you for saying that. Well, I
Yeah.
also feel like there's a kindred spirit there between us around you are the pro at using things the way they weren't meant to be used. And I am fascinated and interested always in people who are trying to break things or shift, not even break things. Sometimes it's just removing one piece and transforming the thing. Or, like I watch you in rooms with people all the time and they wanna hear what you have to say because they know they couldn't have seen or thought the way that whatever you're about to say, you said, That didn't make sense." But you know what I mean? They're watching you saying like, "I wanna know what he's gonna say because it's gonna be something I didn't think of. It's gonna be a perspective I couldn't have had."
Yeah,
That's
and it might
constantly
it might
happening.
might be right and it might be wrong, right? It might miss the mark, it might miss the point, but it's definitely what I'm gonna say is not gonna be what the person on the left or right of me is gonna say. It's
That's
because 'cause
right.
I'm not thinking the way they are, and I'm proud of that, and sometimes it
Yeah.
gets me in trouble, and sometimes it makes me feel, very other, like awkward and
Mm,
weird,
yeah,
just different, you know? But
yeah.
I have been taught through music and through poetry, which is really where I come from in like my education and my background. I've been taught that, like, that is who I am and that is how I be. So I gotta just lean into that all the way. Like,
Yeah.
that's where it comes from. Like, with language, right? Like, my favorite poets have always been the ones who use language in very unconventional ways, right? Like, it
Mm,
started with Emily Dickinson, and, like, her words, her line breaks, her phrasing, her cadence, even the size and shapes of her poems. E. E. Cummings, who's probably the most extreme
mm,
version of that, who's kind of like not just taking risks, but like, playing with language in fun ways that, like, on the page, make him as much of a visual artist as a literary one. And so, and then, like, as I, went through graduate school and started studying even more difficult poets like Paul Celan, he was super compelling for me because Paul Celan was writing in like 5 different languages, sometimes 2, 3, 4, 5 languages in one poem. And so
mm,
his words as a World War II poet were like really, really important. This is someone who survived the Holocaust and was writing about that experience, but in like languages that carried lots of political and emotional baggage for him. And so you're
mm,
writing in Yiddish and German and French, and Russian, and combining words that like are not actual words, but they mean
mm.
something and them at a core fundamental human level that is super deep and impactful. And so I'm like,
Yeah.
Paul Celan is a really tough poet to break,
Mm,
and I haven't even come close, right? But
mm,
and they're dedicate their, like, entire scholarly lives to deciphering, um, the pure language, as it's called by Walter Benjamin, of Paul Celan. That, like,
interesting.
what Paul Celan was trying to do, and Walter Benjamin talks about in pure language, is that if I write the word tree, in whatever language I write it, I don't want you to see the word tree, I want you to see the tree.
Mm,
I'm writing a word. I'm not painting something. I'm writing a word, but I don't want you to see the word. I want you to see the tree. And it's
mm,
like, so
mm,
these are poets who obviously,
mm.
you know, have been studied forever. But my fascination with them is how they were using the tools of the trade, which are words,
Yeah.
letters on a page, in ways that no one had ever done before. And completely either, rejecting, resisting, or misunderstanding how
Mm,
language has been used, could be used, should be used, and therefore giving birth to a new dialectic. And
yeah.
that's that's like really intense stuff that I've never talked about anywhere. And then
Yeah.
the same thing happened for me in music. And I know you're a
Mm,
musician, you've grown up in music your whole life, you're a performer. Um, so I know you get this stuff. Like, I grew up studying with the top disciple of one of the greatest jazz drummers of all time. Lots of people know the Dave Brubeck Quartet. They know, the song Take Five, which was in and of itself, a really, uh, transcendent, composition because it broke with it became one of the most popular songs of its time, but it broke with convention because suddenly you're not playing in 2/2 or 4/4, you're in 5/4. And people were like, "Wait,
mm,
how can you a complex jazz song like in 5/4 that becomes world famous that everybody knows, and it's not like enigmatic, it's just
mm.
mainstream or song, but it's in 5/4."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's like the human heart is do 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 do, but this song was like, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Yeah.
and then you're like 1, 2, 4, 5, or like, and it made you just sort
Yeah.
of like have a
Oh,
different
yeah.
relationship. But that all came from the drummer of that band, Joe Morello.
Mm.
And my teacher's teacher was Joe Morello. And so as a young
Wow.
kid, 8, 9, 10 years old, I was going to jazz clubs at night with my teacher. Um, and I was watching one of the greatest drummers in jazz history get sounds from a very small drum set that I was unable to replicate on my very big drum set. So like
Mm.
you're like listening to a song and you're like, wow, how did they make that noise from that
Yeah,
instrument? Like what Joe Morello was doing was getting sounds from his drums that I had never heard before. And I was meant as someone who was studying his work, I was trying to imitate him all the time in my lessons
sure.
and practice, but I couldn't get the same sounds. But I had 3 times the number of drums that this guy had.
Mm,
Like I had like a full drum kit. And Joe Morello's
yeah,
drum set was very small. Joe Morello was mostly blind, and
wow,
when I met him, he was an older man. Um, and listening to these recordings, and then I'm watching him in the audience, and I'm just not understanding how he's getting his bass drum to go that fast when it's just one right foot on the bass drum. Or I don't
yeah,
understand how his cymbal, his ride cymbal was getting this like bell-like sound. Or I'm not
mm,
understanding how he's getting different tones from the same tom tom, like high tones and low tones from the same drum.
yeah,
And I'm like,
yeah,
I don't understand how he's doing it. And so there came a time after so many times of listening and watching and just trying to figure this out as a kid that I couldn't decode that. And my teacher finally let me sit behind Joe Morello at one of
whoa,
these shows in the Smoky Jazz Club in Newark, New Jersey.
God,
And
that's so
I'll
cool.
never forget the moment that I sat behind him. And and people in that crowd must have been like, "Who is this, like, kid sitting behind Joe Morello?" But
Yeah,
and Joe Morello was like, "I don't know why you're, like, you're letting him sit back here, but okay." And I saw what he's doing. I saw how he was using his left hand to push on the drum head of a tom tom to get different tension on the head that would produce higher or lower sounds when he hit the drum with his right,
mm,
or how he was turning his brushes around to use the metal tip to get the bell sound off of the ride, or how he was supplementing his right foot on the bass drum with his right hand hitting with a drumstick, the drum that was underneath him to go twice as fast. And
wow,
oh my God, this man is using this drum set in a way that no one has used it before. And it wasn't designed to be used in this way.
mm,
He he
mm,
found a new way to use this conventional instrument that has been with us since we've been cavemen.
wow,
And
wow.
I just was like, "Oh my God." Like, and I just stole all of it immediately, right? So, like,
Yeah,
while I was
of
doing
course.
drum solos in junior high school and in high school or college in my college band in Boston, like, I was doing that stuff. And, like, other drummers were, like, asking me, like, "How did you do that?" And I'm like, "Well, let me
Yeah,
show you." And I wasn't, like, protective or about that. I was like, "Let me show you."
yeah,
Like, I just couldn't
yeah,
believe I could do these things. And so then when I got into the workforce and,
mm,
like, my first jobs, shockingly, I didn't use anything the way it was supposed to be used because I was free of that, you know?
yeah,
And it liberated me, and I was like,
mm,
"Oh my god, I'm excited. You all are using this company in this way? Cool. Imma go over here. I'm gonna use it totally different, and some of you are gonna be threatened by that. Some of you are gonna write me off and think it's stupid. Some of you are just gonna, like, be ambivalent about it and not really know what to think, and then some of
mm,
you are gonna be, 'Oh, I see what that guy's doing. I
yes,
wanna,' you know." And
yes,
those are my people, the ones who,
yes.
like, came along and encouraged me and showed me, like, "Oh, wow, like, you're onto something here. You could if you use what we've got around us in different ways, oh, man, like, we could achieve something special." And
Oh,
that's where my leadership was born.
this is so good. Please write the book immediately.
Yeah,
Please
so
write
that's
this
what I
book
wanted to write
immediately.
about. And also,
Honestly,
it's nice to be able to talk to you about that because, how often do you talk about a book before you write it? But this is
well, I
I
I swear every time we talk, a book comes up for you because, whatever, I've been trying to work on this book forever and trying to figure
yeah,
out what
I
is
feel
gonna
it.
happen
Yeah.
with it. But you have just a catalog of these kinds of stories in you, and I just love I love helping people to understand that all these rules that we've confined ourselves to are caging us in. We're caging ourselves in. And while you were talking, I just kept thinking, Ross is an artist, period.
Mm,
You are an artist. You're an artist in everything that you do.
thank you.
The world that you've created around you has been an artistic effort. And in order to truly be an artist, you cannot box yourself in or confine yourselves to a one way of doing things or a set way of doing things. And it's so clear to me that you are in every endeavor you ever venture into. I remember recently we were talking, you had a milestone birthday, and I remember telling you,
Or
I know you might be tempted to like start winding down life eventually. I'm like, but I think that there is so much more for you
um,
because it
I appreciate
I
that.
think you are at this place in your life where I'm ready to see you propagate all of this because the world needs to hear it and see it. And to your
Thank
point, you used the word free. Like I in this podcast so far, the word freedom keeps coming up. And I think we're at this place where our best work is going to come. Our best work, our best uh the way that we begin to shape society for the better is going to come when we free and liberate ourselves. And,
I
uh,
well,
and I
one
think
of the yeah, one of the things you've taught me though about this is like, and I think it's one of the underlying principles of Grow There. So when I first heard that you were gonna call your business Grow There, I heard it in 2 different ways at the same time, and I don't know
Mhm.
meant that. I'm sure you did mean that, but I don't
Well,
again, I
let's
may
find
have
out.
in typical Ross fashion, I probably misunderstood in some way, but I felt Grow There in 2 different ways. Like, I felt on the one hand, I felt like, "Hey, like, there's somewhere I wanna get to in my life
Mhm.
or in my career, and, like, how do I get there? How do I go there? How do I grow there?" So, I'm here now
Sure.
today. I have a vision for the future. How do I grow into that reality?
Mhm. Mhm.
But I also felt it in that, like, if you really examine your own self, or if you have the great fortune of having someone like you examine, let's say, a leader or a business, and look for the weak spots, the vulnerabilities, and then also the untapped potential and exciting possibilities. When you do that, you find areas within your own self that
Mm.
need to grow for you to get
Mhm.
anywhere. Right? So,
Yeah.
like, yeah, you wanna grow to that place that you're trying to get to in life or in business, but there are things inside you or about you that you need to grow in order to get there. So, like, there's
Yeah.
parts of myself that need to grow if I want to achieve whatever's in store.
Yeah.
Do do you
100%.
kinda like that?
That is you are absolutely right about that double meaning. I actually just told the story of how Grow There became Grow There. So you're hitting the nail on the head. But yes, none of that, part of the business model, at least for Grow There, is that I believe organizational cultures, the success of your business is completely aligned with the individuals who work in your business. Their success
Yep.
has to be in parallel, right? Their growth has to be in parallel with your business's growth. So yes, the only way to grow from here to there is to first, every single one of us, be committing to our own personal growth. And yeah, so I don't know. I'm a little growth obsessed, like I said. But listen,
Yeah,
Ross,
me
I
too.
could talk to you forever. I know we're coming to time, and I want to get to rapid fire questions with you. But before I do, is there anything that you would like to share that maybe you didn't get a chance to share? And there's no pressure. You don't have to.
No, I mean, we could talk forever. I don't wanna bore your listeners, I think, I'm good.
Well, no one's gonna be bored. I will tell you that. This has been amazing, and you're just I whatever. I can't wait for the book to actually come out. Whatever it's gonna be, whatever you're gonna birth into this world, because it's gonna be rad. It's gonna be rad.
You're gonna be in
So,
it.
okay. Well, can't wait. Make an appearance. The dog who sees a rainbow.
Cool.
Um, okay. Rapid fire questions. I think there's 9 of them. You ready?
Can we be clear with your listeners, and viewers that I don't know what these questions are in advance?
Oh,
I have no
yes.
idea
Ross
what
does
to
not.
say.
Yes, you have no idea. These could be yeah, you have no idea. Most
Like,
people don't wanna know the questions, but and you were one of them, which is my favorite. Here we go.
fire away.
Fill in the fill in the blank. Growth is
Oh, and you want me to be rapid fire about that?
I mean, do your
Painful,
best.
painful.
Painful. What was the very first thing you realized you were good at? I'm talking like as a child, very first thing.
Drums. I got rhythm from day one. I understood it. I knew it. I felt it in my bones. I knew how to keep a beat and like that's very physical and emotional thing, but like yeah, I feel it. I know music. I know drums.
I love that so much. What was your first job?
I oh my God, no one asked me this. Oh my God, here we go. You ready?
I can't
I was
wait.
this is so funny. I I was a stock boy at a women's shoe store.
Shut up.
Yeah, like I was like
Wow.
Florsheim shoes and boxes and wrapping, yeah,
Oh
putting it
my
on the
gosh.
like
Adorable. They must have
like
loved you.
bunch of
What kind of shoes were these?
like women's dress shoes, like kind of thing in like my town. And my dad showed me how to set up a bank account and like I would take my paycheck and well, actually I was too young to have a paycheck. So I was paid in cash and I would deposit the cash in my bank account in
Uh,
my town. And I was 15 or 14 and it was awesome. But I was like,
uh,
God damn, how do people work that many hours? I was like, I would work like 4 or 5 hours and I'd be like, I'm exhausted. Like, I can't do this shit anymore. And I wasn't really very good either. So I, that was kind of bad. And I think they felt sorry for me. That was my
oh my
first job.
god. That is adorable. That is adorable. I would love to see a picture of you in this job if that exists anywhere.
The weird thing
Um,
about it is it was called Scott's Shoe Shop or Scott's Shoe Store. And like everybody that worked there was a man. Like, there were no women that worked there. It was all men, and they
oh,
all wore, like, suits and ties, and, like,
so
well,
funny.
everybody who shopped there was a woman, and I'm like,
What a different time. That is totally an indicator of
"It's
a
no
different
difference to
time.
me." Like, can you imagine that? Like, it's like it never occurred to them that maybe they should think about hiring a woman at a
So wild.
like, when every customer is a woman and no man is coming in there, and I'm like, look back at that, I'm like, "It's kinda creepy and weird."
That is weird. I mean, yeah, I think weird is the
Yeah,
word for it.
like a bunch of old guys, and then like me as like the stock boy who was like cleaning up all the shit on the floor and putting the things back and then going and get the next size like that. And they were like, you know,
What
laughing at
an
me.
intimate it's just a real intimate purchasing
Right.
experience to, walk into as a woman and to have these men and a young boy just helping them find their
They also like I remember so distinctly the things they did to try to like impress the clients. So like
Mm.
one of those things was like they all had a really flashy watch and, like, so cheesy, and, like, a few rings and, like, a bracelet or 2,
Oh,
and
because they were handling the shoes and
yes,
stuff?
because
Like, they
seeing their hands so much as they put these shoes on your feet that
Wow.
I'm like, "This is really weird." Now looking back on it, but then it wasn't weird, and then the other thing I remember so distinctly, Sharia, is they all had major amounts of cologne on, like, a
Oh,
lot of cologne,
oh
and I
my
was
gosh.
yeah, and, like, some of them smelled really good, and I was like, "God, I wonder if, like, one day I'm gonna wear cologne," like, that kinda thing. So
That is
weird.
so funny to think of, like, the sales strategy. The sales strategy was jewelry and cologne,
Yeah.
that would
Yep.
entice these women to purchase the
What
shoes.
the hell does it have to do with the fact that, like, these ladies wanna buy shoes that they like, and,
Yeah.
like, you think it's about your cologne and your watch. I'm like, "How is that?"
This
I
might also need to go in your marketing book at some point. Like, That's a funny thing. This is pretty good.
I
You need to
think that
start telling this story more.
they don't that's an example of, like, not missing the mark, but missing the point. Like,
Yes.
that's missing the point.
Yes.
Anyway, I'm interrupting your,
No,
um,
this is
I
good.
like,
You need to tell that story more. Um, what is something that you're trying to learn right now?
um, I would say what I'm trying to learn right now is how to this is gonna be surprising. I mean, I'm 50 years old, but how to quiet the voice of self-doubt,
Mm,
which
yeah.
earlier in my career, younger Ross, I didn't really have as much self-doubt, and I wonder
Mm,
why because I was really naive, I guess. And now I have an awareness of how much I don't know,
mm,
and
yeah.
how much I haven't achieved, and all the things that I've tried that haven't worked. Like, like, I lose way more than I win, and,
Yeah.
and, that takes a toll on anybody, and when you get to be my age, there's nobody that comes around and tells you, like, "You're amazing." So you
Mm,
have to figure out by this age how you're gonna convince yourself of that every morning and every night.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm working on that. I'm working on that.
Well, I'm always here for a "you're amazing" text message, so you just holler at your girl if you need that. What's
I
something
think
you're
it's
trying to
important. I think it's important for like people to be open about that though. Like I have yeah,
100%.
I have peers in all the industries that I work in that would never let you know that. That deep inside, there's like lots of times they're like, do I kind of suck? Like, am I
Oh
actually
my
like
god.
not
Yeah.
But like we all do think that, and I definitely think that every day. And so I think it keeps me humble and it keeps me working hard because I know that
Yeah.
I need to, like, remind myself that, like, "No, no, you're gonna be okay, you just keep going."
Yeah. But you know what? I get that, and I've always known that for you too. This is inserting myself, but when we worked together, one of the
Mhm.
things, not because you said this to me, but because I just felt this for you, when people would say good things about you, or you gave a talk and people received it well, I
Yeah.
always wanted to let you know that because I knew they wouldn't let you know that. And so that you need people in your life who are gonna tell you those things. They're gonna tell you the truth when stuff doesn't work well, but they're also gonna go out of their way to make sure when you did the thing. And so,
Yeah, yeah. No,
anyway.
that's really helpful and I think super kind of you. And I would also point to, like, there's a leader who's one of my closest friends, Carolyn Everson. And one thing I learned from Carolyn is that, like, you damn well better ask the tough question after every win and every loss so you can learn from
Mm.
it. And so in addition to, like, seeking, you know, I guess, like, uh, some sort of, like, compliment, which I fish for all day long,
No,
which
you
is
don't.
but Carolyn taught me, like, no matter what happens, when you go to battle, like, as soon as it's over, ask what you could have done better or find out what the worst part of it was and, like, learn from
Yeah.
it. And so after
Yeah.
every win and after every loss, I generally ask those around me not generally, I specifically ask those around me, everybody, individually, "What could I have done better?
Yeah.
Like, where
Yeah.
did I mess up? What could we have as a group have anticipated or prepared for or responded to more effectively?"
Yeah.
I all the time. All the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
They
What's
say, like,
something you're trying?
people say win or learn, you know? Win or
Yeah.
learn. Feel
Win
like
or
it's like
learn.
cruise, but learn either way. Like, yeah.
Yeah, that's so true.
Alright, go
What's something you're trying to unlearn?
Oh. Oh, that's a good question. What's something that I'm trying to unlearn?
Mhm.
What I'm trying to unlearn would be the way that I was programmed to define success as
Mm.
a man, and
Mm.
as an American person.
Mm.
And I think the more you travel to other countries and, other cultures, like, success is defined in very different ways in different parts of the world and, also generationally. And so, like, there's a bunch of assumptions and, like, presumptions and, like, programming that happens to you when you're raised in the way I was raised, where it's like, it's a pretty old definition of success.
Yeah.
And I've
Yeah.
been trying to learn that for years.
Mm. That's a really good one. Tell me a book or a movie that changed your life.
Um, I think that the poems of Rilke have changed my life, Rainer Maria Rilke, because his poems, like, gave me, like, language to understand loss,
Mm,
loss of people that I love, and I think when you lose people that are close to you, it's hard to find the right words, even if you're just talking to yourself, and
yeah.
I think, like, what he wrote on the page, like, was, like, language that I could speak to my own self, and,
Mm,
I found comfort in that. I still find comfort in it, and when I'm, left alone, like, I come back to his books and his poems all the time because they just help me understand what I'm feeling.
it's beautiful. When growth feels good, how do you celebrate?
Oh god, I don't do that enough.
Mm,
Fuck.
mhm.
Are we allowed to curse on your podcast?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, just did. But no, I know, like, this has been a problem for me. This is bad. I'm not good at that. Um,
Well,
yeah.
hopefully this question will inspire you to start doing that more.
I'm not good at celebrating. I'm really good at turning, like, bad things into productive energy, but I'm
Mm,
not really good at, like, taking a victory lap.
mhm.
And my wife Jordana and I are both working on that because you gotta cherish every little thing that's good that
Yeah,
happens. You got like, so we're working on that together.
I love that,
And
and I love calling it a victory lap. I love figuring
yeah,
out what your victory lap is gonna be. I think that is so good. So, then tell me the inverse. When growth feels difficult or hard, how do you take care of yourself?
I just plant more seeds. Like,
Mm,
when you're a struggling young writer and you're submitting your poems to journals that nobody's going to read anyway, and then you get rejected, and that you could tell, like, whoever was evaluating the work, like, didn't even read it probably, or
mm,
definitely think you were worthy of being in their pages. I just got used to, as a young writer, like, rejection after rejection after rejection. And what's so funny about that is that, like, in the world of creative writing, like, when you get rejected, it used to be that you would get, like, a letter in the mail, and it would sort of talk to you about, like, if it was like a thoughtful editor, it'd be like, here's why this piece, needs work.
how
Um,
nice.
yeah, but then you start to get, like, a formal response, which was, I mean, just a form response, right? Not like
Yeah,
a nobody thought about it. You just got the same thing that tens of
yeah,
thousands of other people got. But then that full page became like a half page form response, and then a quarter page, and then like one eighth, and so
yeah.
you would, like, get your poems back in the mail with, like, just a sliver of a, like, because they wanted to save the paper, and it was
Wow.
not even worth a half a page to reject. And I
Whoa.
have so many of those rejections, Sharia. And I was like, after you just keep getting, and look, I'm someone who published a book of poems, like,
Yeah.
2001, but let me tell you how many slips of paper rejecting me I
Wow.
got for that book and since. And, I learned to plant every one of them to, like, say, like, all right, cool. Energy is neither destroyed or created. What am I going to do with the
Mhm,
thing that just came at me that sucks? Well,
mhm,
I'm going to catalytically convert it into
mm,
something that has hope and possibility. So
yeah,
I can't turn a loss into a win, but I can turn a loss into another set of opportunities. And
yeah,
maybe when I wake up tomorrow, one of those opportunities will come to bear, and
mm,
come that's how I
yeah,
manage it. It's like,
yeah,
because sitting in the loss is just, I can't even imagine.
yeah,
I can't
yeah, so
can't just
good.
there lose. You can knock me down. You could tell me I
Yeah,
didn't win. You could reject me, but whatever that energy is, it's gonna be turned into a new possibility somewhere else.
yeah, I love that, that's so powerful. Okay, last question. When you grow all the way up in this life, and actually up and out of this life, what is the thing that you will congratulate yourself on?
I mean, that's an easy one for me. Um, I'm trying to raise 2 boys into good men, good
Mhm.
people, good humans in a world that, like, has become so much more complicated and difficult for people like them, to live in, and I'm trying to give them everything I can to be able to succeed and live a happy life and to make their worlds better. So, if there's anything that I achieve in this life, God willing, it's that people look at those kids and respect them, and that
Mhm.
they love each other and they love themselves. That's
Yeah,
the most important thing and everything else is just other shit. That's
I
it.
love it. Well, Ross, this was an epic conversation, and I knew it would be, and I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for being in my life, and thank you for showing up with your whole self today. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for letting me be part of this. Letting me see and understand like what you're doing at Grow There because it's so meaningful. And I think that what you're doing with this podcast in specific is a great gift to many. So
Mm.
I will amplify this, and I hope that what I've said inspires others. And I hope to God you get better episodes out of the next batch of people you.
So, I mean, I hope the same because if there anything as good as one, then we're on a good track. So,
Proud of
anyways,
you. I'm proud of
love you
you,
too.
and I proud to be
Thank
part of your
you.
life. I love you too.
Oh, thank you so much. Take care. We'll end it. Bye, everybody.